this Tuesday, the 30th of September. This month is the last day of September, and this month has gone really quite quickly. So I hope we're all doing really well this Tuesday, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. Get into the chat. Let me know how your day's going. Let me know anything about you and where you are checking this channel out from. What I'll always say on this channel is I'm not a dictator of this chat. You guys get your chats in. I will lead something we can talk about. I'll give my opinion. The only thing I do ask is that you don't disrespect the community, you don't disrespect me, and we can chat amongst ourselves, and that is what we do here. We're very logical on here. I think we give everybody the fair crack of the whip, and this is just a fantastic community that makes this channel what it actually is. So let me know how you're doing all in the chat. He said he wants to be sacked. Yes. And Scott, welcome, my friend. Scott Legend and all one of the mods on this channel. Now, where do I want to start off with? Now, do I start off with now I'm finally Amorin out after I am reluctantly Amorin out after the comments made today. And again, these are comments and things that I've seen, things that I've read around the place, and I think it's come to a point now where something has to change. Now, I'm not going to let these players get away with it, but you know, today is focusing not necessarily on these players. We know who these players are. We know what these players are and what these players are not. But I think it's fair to say that we need to go through this again. I mean, this is the topic of conversation. This is what I don't want to be talking about. Has he actually said those things? Look, Scott, one of these things is that what he has said, and again, got to read between the lines on this one. And some of the things I am going to say are behind the scenes that has actually kind of been confirmed. Scott, I wish it was spin. I actually do wish this was spin. I'll come at it, and Scott, get your opinions in, because like me, we've been Amorin in for the longest of times, even after the Grimsby game, even yesterday to a point. One leg in the Amorin in and one leg out. And I think today, I do have to put both feet in, and reluctantly having to put both feet into the Amorin out camp on the basis that I think this is an untenable situation. I wish I could get sacked and take 12 months home. 12 million pounds. I'd get sacked weekly. Exactly, Andrew. Exactly, my friend. And this is where we're at. So where has this come from? And then I'll tell you why I am Amorin out. Because I think something has to change, and the only thing that's going to change at the moment is this coach. Now, do I think that Ineos want Amorin out? Now, that's a different story. So this is a different story. That I think the message from Amorin is back me or sack me. And the comments that he's made about really he's not, and this for me is sort of alluding to why I am Amorin out, and why I have to be, is because he doesn't care. And when I say he doesn't care, he's basically back me or sack me, and Amorin and are Ineos going to back him. Now, Scott says he's still Amorin in. Look, Scott, I'm not going to. For me, it's a little bit of a weird one, right? Is that Amorin for me? I'm not bothered necessarily about the results. I'm not even necessarily bothered about players playing out of position. I'm not bothered about what pundits say. I'm not bothered that these players are complaining. What bothers me more than anything is the attitude of Amorin and the way that he's conducted himself. And I have to be fair, and I have to look back on all of the managers that we've had, and I have to say that Amorin is I find Amorin quite a loose cannon. I know, I want emotion from the manager. I want him to care, but I think it's emotional immaturity from him at times. Andrew says keeping Amorin until after the 1st of November to save a couple of mil is insane. 6 points can be the difference between European shots and 10th and 100 plus. John says shut your pie hole. John, no, I won't, John. And if you don't like it, my friend, feel free to fuck and off. Look, I've got no time for disrespect, John. When I started this channel, right? Again, as I'll always say, I'm very respectful to people's opinions, as long as there's no disrespect in this community. I will put up with a lot of things, but when I first started this channel, I was a little bit probably more forgiving than I am now. But John, what's really funny, my friend, is I guarantee you wouldn't say that to my face. So why say something and be impolite to somebody you wouldn't say that to their face? So John, obviously you're having a little bit of a bad day. Don't take it out on me. If this channel isn't for you, if I'm not for you, go away. It is as simple as that. Mr. Tawhid says, hello, my friend. Hello, my friend. So, Andrew is absolutely right. Keeping Ten Hag here. Now, I understand it. Look, if I thought for a second that I could see a vision, right? I need Ineos to come out. Look, if Ineos got guaranteed that they were going to back this manager and said, look, let's get through these couple of games, told these players, look, I'm very, very well, my friend, and hope you are as well. Now, if Ineos come out and actually told us their plan and said, look, we're going to back this coach, right? And our plan is we're going to buy him a team, and we are going to do this in the next window. We are going to back him. We're going to give him his players, and we can see a sort of way forward. A lot of these players are not going to be here, and if I could see that vision, 100%. As I say, where are you from? I'm from Bangladesh. I'm from Essex in the UK. So where I'm at now is that because of Ineos's ineptitude, I think Amorin for me at the moment is too emotional. He's too stubborn. He's putting his own agenda, in my view, before the best of the club. Now, these, as I say before, these players do not get away with it. Okay, these players are just as bad. But I have to look at the coach, and I have to go with what I believe and what I think is right. As I've always said this, I can put up with Amorin not playing the players in the correct position. I can understand Amorin following his philosophy to a degree. Jamie's looking for some new slaves, do you know what I mean? I love it. I can put up with Amorin's outbursts, but what I cannot put up with is him putting his own agenda before the club. Now, there are stories out there give you an example of what I mean by that. So the training sessions that he does now, he cuts a lonely figure. He doesn't want to interact with the players. Now, I get it. He only really wants to interact with the leadership group. And when you ask me, and when we talk about why is he not doing something with the youth players, why can't he make these players better? And the truth of the matter at the moment, Nothing Guy says, yo mate, hello my friend, legend of the chat. Why can't Amorin make these players better? Now, what is quite obvious as to why he cannot make these players better is because at the moment he's not interacting with his team. He's using the coaches to do it all, and the only people he interacts with are the leadership team. Now, I find that incredulous. I find it ridiculous. If you're and I know you're under fire, and I'll always say this, Bruno is the captain on the pitch, and he doesn't, he's not a captain. Amorin has to be the leader off off of the pitch. And when you're not performing, it's not just about tactics, it's not just about training, it's about how you conduct yourself around the place. And I'm absolutely not convinced. Scott says give him a year and go there. If he gets top 10, then give him the funds to get plays he wants. Anything 10 above, sack him. Football Tube, hello my friend, legend of the chat. You lot weren't considering all this when you wanted him, so regardless, firm his B and stick with him. Look, I think people are allowed to change their mind, right? As I've said, I can put up with a lot of stuff. The Grimsby game, I'm not Amorin out blindly. I am not Amorin out. Especially Amorin just needs to be binned off. He's a nice bloke, but he's an absolute shambolic manager. They say there is no one but there to replace him. I'm fairly sure I'd do a better job than Amorin. You see Barca last season and see them now. United needs Amorin to do that for the club, transform, and the mentality of the players. Now, look, these are all some really, really good points, right? And I'll explain where I'm at on it again, right? So, Amorin for me, as a manager, and the tactics and the vision and a coach, I believe in that. I really, really do. All right? I'm not Amorin out now on the basis of the team, of the management style. These players, we all know what these players are. We all know these players will let the club down time and time again. The players are to blame. The toxicity of this club is crazy. But these players do not respect the manager, and I'm sort of starting to see why. It is all out there. The videos are out there as well. Is that Amorin is not close to this side. Amorin has removed himself from this club, and he looks like a manager who's done. I know he's not interacting with the players anymore. He lets the coach do the training. Now, that for me is in itself is fine, but he doesn't want to be here. How can we have a coach? And I'm taking away tactics. Look, if Ineos can say, look, we will give him time. Look, I would love to give him a year, but we're not going to get a year from this. These players do not want to play for him, which is not his fault. This is the player's fault. But what I need to see is a manager who comes out swinging. For me, a manager who plays Fernandes, and I'm not talking about playing him in the 10 or the 8, I'm talking about after the performances that he's had, a manager who is too scared to drop Fernandes, who still plays Luke Shaw, who still plays Maguire. That is unforgivable on the basis he's putting his own beliefs ahead of what is best for the club. Now, what baffles me completely, as I've said many, many times, is that we know what these players are like. Amorin should have been told, and Amorin would know. You have to survive these players. And Amorin is not doing that. These players are outsmarting Amorin in terms of they have absolutely destroyed his confidence. We all know who these players are. We all know what these players do time after time after time. Also, tactically, which I don't really like talking about, tactically, Amorin is inept. As I say, he's a very young coach. He's 40 years old. He's still learning the game himself. I'd absolutely love to give him time, but I now have to. I don't see a way back for him. I don't. The only way back for him, in my opinion, is that he has to do something different, completely different. He has to do something that's going to change this round. I don't know how he changes himself. He's clearly a defeated man, and you can see it, and that's going to go through the team. So if I had the choice, these players would all be cut. Amorin would stay, I'd give him his players to give him a fair crack. As I say before, it takes me a lot to be like, look, we need to change something. These players are not going to get sacked. A lot of these players, other than Casemiro, etc., will still be here next year. And unless something drastic happens in terms of Amorin is willing to drop these players, he hasn't. He's willing to change the formation. Then I don't see a way back, and I have to be right now for the protection of this club. I have to be Amorin out. Now, what I'll say is that there is nothing wrong in changing your mind. Now, I don't want him sacked. I'm not Amorin out because of the tactics or the players or we're losing games. I'm Amorin out because he's putting himself and his agenda before the club. And as a coach, that is something that you absolutely cannot do at this football club. So again, I'm going to read through the chats. Let me know how you feel. Let me know if you are Amorin out, Amorin in. I mean, my reasons, I want to give Amorin a chance. I want to give him a year, but I just don't see how we get through this period unless Amorin decides to do something completely different, which we all know that he won't because he's stubborn. Barry says Amorin just needs to be binned. I read that one. I've read that one as well. That's changing. There's changing your mind, and there's having the rest of us put up with the noise from the big platforms, encouraging opinions through theirs and not. Look, I agree with you. Look, the bigger platforms will tell you that Amorin's this and Amorin's out. And look, I am not here to change your mind. I'm here to give you my opinion. You're here to give me your opinion, and we're all different in our views and our opinions. Now, I support Amorin from a football part, right? So what I mean is, I'm not bothered. Look, these players can't play the system. That's not Amorin's fault. Amorin came into this club, okay? I'm not Amorin out because of the way that we're playing. I know who's responsible for that. Ineos are the problem. Ineos hired a coach who probably wasn't the right coach. I'm not Amorin out because these players won't respond to him. But what I want to see is I need leadership from him. I don't need him when he's sat on the bench, his head is in his hands. He is defeatist. And we can't have that. We absolutely cannot have that. We have a manager who's absolutely been done in again, and for his own sanity and for mine. I look. If Amorin gets sacked, Wilcox has to go as well. Omar has to go, and these players have to be punished. I truly believe that they have had such an impact on these coaches that Amorin, I just don't think that there's a way back from. I think he's been mentally destroyed, and I don't think I think he's very, very emotional. I mean, how can we have a manager who comes out and basically says, I don't care if I get the sack? I mean, what is he doing? What is that about? He is detached from this club, detached from these players. Now, I'm not encouraging you to be Amorin in or out. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. I think you have to stick with the principles. For me, this is such a hard one for me. I still maintain I don't want to sack a manager, but unless Amorin does something right now, I have to be Amorin out for the sake of the club, because it's just not good. It's just not good. He deserves one full season. All day, I believe he can turn it around. He dropped Bruno Shaw and Slavic and Scott. That, my friend, is the issue. Look, if he's prepared to do that, I will. My stance will change because I'm not a flip-flop. I won't go from Amorin out to Amorin in. Amorin has to maintain this, right? I'm. It's really difficult to describe. I'm not necessarily Amorin out or in. I am manager in or out. I am Ineos out, the Glazers out. I think it's a very, very too simplistic view right now to be Amorin out, because it is so complex and the toxicity is just ridiculous. The Nothing Guy says, train them physically, bring in the young folks from the academy. I have said it before and I'll say it again, United Academy is really good. They clearly lost their passion, probably from losing. I'll always say this, and I've got to be consistent on this. Youth is not the answer. It really isn't. The reason why Fergie was able to do it was because he had that stable team. He had a stable platform to be able to bed in the youngsters. If you bring in these young players, they're going to be eaten alive. We need a stable platform for these players to come into. We don't, and it will absolutely destroy these young players. They can't play 30 games a season. And I know this season is a different one because we're only playing one game a week, and maybe that is the best way to bed them into the squad. But I don't think youth is the way to go. I think bringing part youth is, but we need a stable platform. Nobody, not even us. When we brought in the class of 92, we didn't just bring them in and they became world-class players. We fed them through. It took them at least 2 to 3 seasons to come into the squad and become consistent players. Bringing in youth is not the answer. How can you not be close to the team, your manager? Awkward personality. Football tube. I think it's a mixture of both. I think he's too immature. I think the job is far too big for him. I don't think he's got the personality. I think he lets his own emotions cloud what he should be doing. I just don't think he's mature enough to deal with these players. I don't think he is. He needs more time. He strikes me as a person who needs his own players around him. That's why he was good at Sporting. It's okay to get rid of the bomb squad. It's okay to do that, but to manage men, it's difficult enough. I know, but as a coach, to be able to do that and command that respect, I have to look at it from a playing squad perspective. If you've got your coach every 3 months saying, I'm going to quit, he can't watch the team play, irrespective of how badly I feel about these players and how much of a waste of space I think they are, the lessons have not been learned. My issue with Amorin is not his tactics, but who he continues to play. Exactly that. I need to see a manager who's brave, making decisions and uniting the fan base. And again, he is dividing this fan base 100%. The fact that the training videos are out there, the fact that he is detached from the squad. Look, as I said yesterday, I want a coach who comes in and just goes, look, I think as a fan base, we really wouldn't care if we lost the odd game here and there, if he was bold, if he decided to use players that were exciting, if he tried to excite the fans, if he tried to do something different, he'd get my support. He'd get fan support, but it's turgid, stubborn football with players we all know are not great. And yes, that's on Ineos. But if you want to survive, you absolutely need to pander to these players a bit, and I hate it. I despise that. But you have to do something to survive. And then if Amorin got to the end of next season, if Amorin was trying to do everything he could and he was passionate and excited, I'd let him finish 15th. But it's not just that anymore. It's the fact that Amorin doesn't want to be here. How is Luke Shaw still allowed to have the dad bod build? Amorin needs to bring the passion again, bring the spirit of not giving up until the last minute. But again, though, I'll be fair to Amorin on that one. He doesn't dictate he doesn't. Does he? It's difficult. Does he dictate? He probably does. Whether or not your manager is low, as a player, you should have some professional pride and want to win. But Amorin is dictating the mood. Fernandez is dictating the mood. If you're a player and you've got a coach that doesn't really speak to you, what are you supposed to do? Pick apart. How could Shaw, Harry, Deloitte, Bruno could still be starting ever a game, and for Bruno it seems impossible. Sub him. Pick apart. Agree. JB, are you feeling better? I'm still a little bit bunged up. It just won't bloody go. But thank you, Scott. E-Ink says, City fan here, the man has failed too much. United should get a new manager and players from scratch again before even more damage is done. Look, mate, E-Ink, I wish we had your money, my friend. I think we need to rip it up and start again. We need to get rid of the Glazers. We need to get rid of. I give City a lot of stick, right? But at least your owners want to do something. At least your owners want to invest in the club. E-Ink, you're right. This club is toxic. We need to start again in terms of we need to get rid of the Glazers. We need to get rid of Ineos. We need to get rid of these players. Get rid of the coach. It all needs to be purged. But sadly, we don't have the money. E-Ink, the damage is done. And the only way to fix it is by throwing money at the problem, money that we don't have. Jim H says, is Danny Dyer... look, I don't know Danny Dyer. He comes across as being a bit of a geezer, doesn't he? He's... I'd love to do it. He's like, what, geezer? Yeah, he goes, I'm going to go and have the apples and pears. Geezer, come on, guys. Yeah, guys, I'm a geezer, yeah. Look, I don't know him. I don't particularly like his films, but I'm sure he's a nice guy. He's a nice guy. Instead of wanting to give a manager a year and stumble across bad results, I'm feeling can't we just see how it goes on whoever comes in and then make a judgment. Look, I think what we need, and whether this is Amorin or somebody else, we need somebody who's brave. Look, we need somebody who's brave, and when I say that, who's brave to drop Bruno, who's not afraid to drop Shaw, who's not afraid to bring in some youth and bed them into the team, who's not afraid, who is willing to stand up to these players and ball at them, who's willing to stand there on the touchline and not have a tantrum, not keep offering to resign. And again, for me, that is one of the biggest red flags. Offering to resign twice is an absolute red flag for me. So, even on the basis of that is enough for people to be hammering out on. And as I say, I'm not bothered about the tactics because I know these players. I know what this club is about, and it's not on the coach. But what is on the coach is how he conducts himself. A coach with vision has to see someone in our academy that is good enough to come in. Heaven was decent last year, didn't get a look in. If you're losing with all these expensive players, why not build? Pick apart. Agreed, mate. I don't know what's happening with Yoro. No, he took Bruno's side over that. That's a red flag for me. Heaven was great last season. He seems to be destroying the egos, which is fine, but he seems to be destroying the confidence of young players as well. If we sack him, I would like Xavi. I think we will, mate. It's going to be Southgate, I think, but Xavi to come in. Look, I wouldn't say no to Xavi. Look, if it's Xavi or Southgate, you give him a go. Look, what is the worst that can happen here? Is Xavi experienced? Look, it's a difficult one for me. I don't want to sack the manager. I don't want to sack him. But it's difficult. look, we have to get somebody in. I think we should go for someone with experience, and we can talk about that as well, because Glasner, there are some talks about him as well. His tactics, the players are totally not able to adapt to the system. They're not being able to play at full potential. Bruno fell off because his original position and playing ability is affected. Look, nothing, Guy. Look, in theory, I respect the opinion, and I'm not putting opinions down. So if you are new to this channel, I don't put your opinions down. We give opinions, and then I come back on with my opinion. Doesn't mean that I'm correct. It just means that we talk about this. So for me, I agree in principle with what you're saying, right? Because it's only a logical perspective. But I disagree with Bruno. Bruno's going to get away with this again. Like, whether you're playing 8 or 10, you are the United captain of this team. And look, I can forgive him not playing well. Look, if he's doing a job for the team, I get it. That is not what annoys me. It is the attitude. That penalty was disgusting. The way he flaps his arms, the penalty that he missed and the penalty that he scored over because the referee touched his back, and he was still moaning and complaining. The way he blames players, the way he throws players under the bus. I'm sorry, I want that little dickhead out of this club. He's done. He's done. I don't care. We are bigger than Fernandes, and this is what is beginning to grate me. Not with your opinions, but with the club. We are bigger than Bruno Fernandes. We have let bigger and better players go than Bruno Fernandes. Jap Stam, one of the best defenders, but because he wrote something in a book, he was gone. Beckham, we sold prime Beckham because of the falling out, because Fergie thought he was getting too big for his boots. Ruud van Nistelrooy, there was a problem with him, so he went. Roy Keane. Fergie sold so many big players. I don't understand why people are so scared to sell him. Sell him. He's not bigger than this club, and he's becoming bigger than this club, and he needs to go. The tactics have hurt the natural ability of these players, Harry, Bruno, and Šeško. Look, again, if these players can't adapt, look, football players are football players, right? My biggest gripe with these players is they can't even look. Formation-wise, again, I can forgive that, but they can't even string two passes together. They can't even fight for the badge. They just give up. Their heads drop, and that for me is the epitome of what this team is. I can forgive these players being played out of position. It's a difficult system. I get it, but what I cannot forgive, is the lack of intensity, lack of urgency. You can still play bad, but still have urgency, still want to play, still play for the fans, still play for the badge, still play for yourself. And these players play for their own. You've got players who are playing for themselves and a manager who's trying to manage for himself. It's a recipe for disasters. When it's happening, they can't afford it. KK, look, I think people on here are right. I think November, look, he's not getting sacked this week. Let's just put it that way. If Liverpool batter us, I don't think they've got an option but to sack him there. Sunderland, if we lose there, I think, but the talk is November the 1st because of a payment. But look, I think that if it becomes an untenable situation, which I think it is, Sunderland lost, and I think he's gone. I think he's gone anyway. There is no turning back unless he gets backed. I don't think he will, and that's it. Can we just call a spade a spade? Just talk of just playing things as is a observation. Grow up, man. Don't even entertain them, mate. Look, you can't just play the youngsters. You can't just do it. Right? As I said before, and I've explained, right, already, is Fergie, and the reason why Liverpool play some of the youngsters is because they've got a team. You embed the team. If you put the youth team in this league, they'll get battered. If you think putting youth players into this team as it is, they'll get absolutely battered. It will destroy them as players. And that's the reason why we can't do it. Until we get a settled team full of different characters, the youth, they can't play unless they're a special talent and unless they've got something that is a leadership drive in them. We just can't play them. Le Messiah can do why can't United Academy? Barca in similar position, not exactly this bad, but Barca were not really a threatening team since Messi left. If a few good young players can come in, look. The problem also as well, whilst I respect the opinion, La Liga. I mean, La Liga is, I'm not going to call it a farmers league, but come on, La Liga is so easy to bet in players there. Like, you're playing Mallorca, you're playing La Palma, you're playing these teams who live on an island. Like, no disrespects, but it's easy to bet in youth players. Barcelona would never have embedded those players into this league and got away with it. So I do respect the opinion, but trying to compare what they've done compared to what we need to do in the Premier League, look, you can't compare it. You can't. It's a completely different game. Long donut, you're a dickhead. Get out. Okay. Grace Sheridan says fans would get behind him more if he was trying different things, coaching his players the best he can, managing games better. We would understand it if we lost, but just won. Exactly, Grace, exactly. And that is where I'm at on it. Now, I understand he's got principles and I respect it. I respect the system. I respect he's not got his players. I respect that we don't have any money. I'm absolutely not bothered about that. And that's the thing. What bothers me is him as a person. Too emotional. He has to put his own agenda before the club. And that is what I've always said. The moment that a manager puts his own beliefs and agenda before the club in a stubborn stance. Sergio just wants his champers, and Glazers just want their dividends. He does. He's like, we can't sack him, Ruben Chambers. We can't sack you before the first because otherwise that's less champers for me. And I love my bully. Come on, Ruben, you can do it. We'll back you with 15 pence. Come on, Ruben Champers. You can't really talk about money when you spend comparable amounts over time, and we've both spent a lot of money, as you said, cities wise. E-Ink, look, I'm not going to go too hard on you, but let's be clear, E-Ink. United spent their own money. You spent someone else's, so you can't compare yourself to us. E-Ink. Look, I don't want us to step on us on a bad foot, right? Look, I respect your opinion. That's your view. E-Ink. Factually, we spent our own money. You spent someone else's. So please, E-Ink. Please don't bring yourself down. Please don't make yourself look silly, right? I please, just don't. You spent someone else's money. You were in League One. And the only way you got back to the Premier League was, mate, you were artificial. You had an injection of money. We can talk about money, mate, because Man City have cheated. Number one, they have 150, and it's been proven that they have. Okay, but it's what the court of arbitration thinks is right. But you've been caught out. And you haven't spent your own money. We've spent our own money. The Glazers have never put a penny of their own money into this club. They've taken money out, and we've spent our own money. E-Ink, you cannot compare the two. You spent your daddy's money. We've spent our own. We've worked hard for our money. We've earned our money, and you spent someone else's money. E-Ink, I'm sorry, my friend. You can't compare the two. You just can't do it. He's turning things around. I think so far this season they are doing just fine. Only bad result was the last one. Why World? Look, I don't disagree. We're only a point behind Chelsea, 3 points behind City, but it's so much more than that, isn't it? I mean, look, if we get a result in the next 2 games, I need to see it more. Look, this has been 18 months of this, no back-to-back wins. You know, look, I don't want Amorin to go. Look, I am Amorin out at present because I am out because of him, because of the way that he's been, because of the stubbornness, not because of the tactics. I can forgive the tactics. I can forgive. It's not his team, but what I can't forgive right now is the way that he is behaving towards not the players, but the way that he's distancing himself. Look, the guy wants the sack. He doesn't care, and he's doing everything in his power to get the sack. And at that point, I am out. I really am. Have you seen Luis Enrique? Despite being injured heavily, he's still dictating his players. That's what a manager does. We're getting paid everything as a coach for the club. Exactly. Let's also be honest. United is a toxic club. Agreed. Anything positive gets infected and starts to dwindle away. That's why United spending is not enough to even stabilise him. Look, E-Ink, redeemed yourself with that there. Look, E-Ink, agree with you. Very, very intelligent comment to make, and I agree with you completely. There is no comeback from me there. Someone just gave me the Satanic Bible. Bruno has been told is bad. I won't disagree. Bruno and Amorin, the football club, aren't big enough for the two of us. Completely agree. CR7 for managing 2028. Who'd you get as a replacement? Dobby 88. Don't know, mate. I haven't thought that far ahead. It's going to be Southgate. I'm convinced it's going to be Southgate. Outside of that, Xavi wants it. Glazers, I will quickly talk about that as well before I go. I think Sunderland will beat us. They'll be third in the league. Le Mans starts on Saturday. He's not starting, Scott. He's not starting, mate. Look, he's not. He's just not starting. Ugarte can fit into the system, but Bruno has problems. He can't go deep. Trackman, the biggest weakness of Bruno, cannot defensive work. He's bad as a captain as well. Nothing got. Ugarte can do a job, but anything else, I agree. Ismail says, hi, hello, my friend. Amorin's system clearly doesn't work. Dobby, look, Amorin's system doesn't, look, I will admit this, Amorin's system doesn't work with his players. It doesn't. That's not his fault, right? I'm not blaming him for that. I'm not blaming him for the system. I'm not blaming him for the formation. I'm not blaming him for the players. It's his, all right, you spent more than Liverpool, so why aren't you in this situation? We were in the Prem in 2008 when you got our current owners. Yeah, but E-Ink, you said to me that we both spent money, but you've spent it better. Facts. 100% facts. You guys have spent your money better, but it wasn't your money to spend. Liverpool have spent more money, which they earn. But E-Ink, to go back to your original statement, the second one, we're toxic. E-Ink, you're right, mate. You're absolutely spot on. Look, you were spot on. Other than trying to compare the spending, which I think is a ludicrous statement, and I think you sort of need to think about that because you will get comeback for every other club in the Premier League. We all know. But everything else you said is right. The reason why we spent badly is because we were run by fucking idiots. We were run by non-football people. We were run by people who ran banks, right? And you're absolutely right. We are toxic. We've wasted money, and you spent it better. The only difference is we've wasted our own money. Liverpool have got owners who have been brilliant. City have got owners. Look, in terms of your club, City, your owners have been brilliant. They've invested in the community around. They've invested in players. They've done what the coach has asked them to do. I'm not talking about City from an owner's perspective. All I'm saying is that let's not pretend with you guys. Everything was artificial. Everything was bought. These fans that you've got now, look, I don't like the sort of the glory hunter tag. I don't, but you've got to admit you can't, because if you don't, I think it's a bit silly. You were artificially created from League One, and you spent someone else's money. But everything else you said is pretty much spot on. Amorin is very naive to implement his Farmer League's tactics in the Portuguese. He should be more pragmatic. We beat you 2 times in 2008 in the league, so unless United was relegated, and as well, City, like, I don't know what you're saying on that topic. Look, Ian, look, I know what you're trying to do and what you're trying to say, but you can't come at this fan base with the money thing. You can't do it. You can't do it. You can't. Look, in 2008 we lost. It doesn't really matter. But the point is, you were in League One. You had zero money, zero. You were literally going to go out of existence. And then you got artificially pumped. Mate, it doesn't matter then if you come into the league. Ian, that statement is pointless. Mate, there is no point trying to argue City's case here. This, you're never going to hear it on here, right? Mate, Ian, you've come out with some blinding opinions. I 100% agree, but you cannot come on here and plead City's case. You can, but I will call it out because it's nonsense. I did it. Amorin gets sacked. Not yet Ben, but I think he will. Sir Alex knew things were going wrong when he retired, and nothing has happened at United to rectify the situation. Recruitment terrible, overspending and mismanagement. LB 1010 or 100%. No, Benny's been sacked. No, Benny's not been sacked. Amorin can't be sacked. They don't want to compensate him. He will be sacked. But look, I did say yesterday as well that we may get to a situation whereby Ineos, as you say, and I will be absolutely fair because I read your opinions and I absolutely respect your opinions, and it's not about me pushing my agenda. This is about us talking about this as a community, right? Frugal boy, you could have a point here, right? I said this yesterday, we spoke about it. We could have a situation where Ineos can't financially get rid of him or don't want to because they want to save face. Then that situation is toxic. Amorin wants to go. Amorin doesn't like these players. Amorin doesn't want to be here. Amorin isn't happy. These players don't particularly like anybody, and it's going to be horrific. In that situation, we go down. And I know that sounds crazy, but unless Amorin goes, unless Amorin changes, unless these players start responding, it is an absolute toxic mess again. Amorin is begging to be sacked so he can't have a payday. United won't win the Premier League for 20 years. I don't disagree with you. Well, I hope United gets a better manager. Thank you, Gamer67. Nothing will change with this Glazer ownership. Oliver Barber, I agree 100%. I've been saying this time and time again for the last 15 years. Nothing will change with the Glazers. Glazers out, Sir Jim out. If I could fix this club, the players and the manager are secondary, right? Until those cretins are gone, who've destroyed this club, we do not move on. Oliver's spot on. Amorin is getting called up by the board to talk about his tactics. Martin, that was a load of nonsense, my friend. If we sack Amorin or he walks, then I'm Xavi in. Southgate, it will be worse. I agree with you, Scott. Change the manager, nothing will change. It's rotten from the top down. I agree, Oliver. United fans haven't driven the Glazers out. Look, Simon James, I agree with you, mate. If this was the Geordies, if this was the Scousers, you wouldn't have it. You wouldn't have it. These scumbags wouldn't be here. You guys would have driven them out completely. Yeah. Can you imagine what Xavi would do? Kobe, yes, Scott. But again, though, mate, that's one player, isn't it? That is absolutely one player. What about Fernandez? What about Luke Shaw? He can't improve Luke Shaw. He can't look. I don't think. Look, we all know what these players are. Unless you're doing what they want to do, they don't respond to anybody. So Xavi will improve this team possibly, but he won't improve the rest of this team. Capio says City's owner are sports washing. That sort of state investment inflates football costs. I agree. That's true. We need to vote with our feet. Don't attend games and stop watching. I agree with that. As ownership model should have been illegal too. 100%. I mean, it wouldn't get through now. City not in League One when they were bought. There's nothing about Xavi as a manager that makes me think he's a good fit for our club. Ancelotti is the man. He's an outside bet, Brendan. But to that comment, look, whether they were in League One or not, I can't remember 100%. But City weren't doing anything. City went down to League One, and okay, fine, like they came back, but they weren't doing anything. City might have come back to the Premier League, but they were never winning the league. Look, irrespective of whether they were in the League One or the Championship, they were never going to be the powerhouse that. So we can argue, Capio, about semantics. We can argue about leagues, but they were never going to come back up and win the league. Never. B-Doc says there's nothing about Xavi as a manager that makes me think he's a good fit for our club. Ancelotti is the man and an outside bet. Brendan Rodgers. Ancelotti, Brendan Rodgers. No, thank you. The manager can't change the club whatsoever. He's brought in with no help. Ineos are toothless. They don't own enough shares. Basic knowledge of company ownership tells you that. Look, Sir Jim is not here to own this club, as we've spoken about before. Sir Jim is here for a financial transaction. Now, people will chuck at me 30% and he's put in 300 million of his own money, blah, 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 blah. If you've got an asset that you know is going to be worth X amount of money, what you do, you are allowed to spend money on an asset to fix it. And that's all he's doing. He is keeping this club afloat because he knows his asset is going to be worth billions of pounds. That money that he's invested, that 1.5 billion pounds, is going to be worth 3. When this stadium is built, the land is done, and everything is in here. Look, it is going to be. It's going to be worth 3 billion pounds. It is going to be absolutely ridiculous. Oliver Barber says top man. Xavi will bring success to the team. No, he won't. Neo12 says really, if it's true, I'll be happy for it. Brendan Rodgers managed Liverpool. Celtic, he knows what it is to manage a big club with experience. Both Celtic and Liverpool require B-Doc. You can't compare Celtic to Liverpool. I'm sorry, my friend. Look, expectation is for Celtic to win, and I'm not disrespecting the club. They're a big club. Hoops are a big club, absolute legendary club, big, huge club. But you can't compare that. You cannot compare Celtic to the Premier League. I'm sorry, B-Doc, you can't. You can't, mate. I think Xavi would do a good job. That's my opinion. If you don't like it, then suck it up. Exactly, Scott. Exactly, mate. Exactly. What I'll say on here is, I will not disrespect opinion. Look, who knows? Xavi could be an amazing coach. We don't know. We don't know. He could be the right fit for the club. He could turn these players round. I'm not saying that he will, but you could say that. We don't know. It's all about personal opinion. I'm not doing that. I'm saying Rodgers has experience where he demands to win every game. No. Rodgers is not for me. Look, Rodgers I think he's been out of the game for quite some time. No, I get it. I get it, Big Doc. I do. Again, that's an opinion. I'm not trying to put the opinion down, but it's just not. It's just not for me. Xavi wouldn't come in for one. He wouldn't help the club structure. That's fact, not opinion. Oliver, look, I agree that he wouldn't come in and fix the structure of the team. Nobody can do that. But no manager should. Oliver, look, mate, I respect the opinion, but no manager is going to fix this club. No manager is going to fix the structure of this club, and that is a fact. I don't see what he but it is Oliver. What is required is a structure fix, but he can't do that. He doesn't. No manager will have the power to do that. The only way the structure will change is if Ineos fuck off, and if the Glazers sell the club. He's already said he would take the IB. That's what's required. He almost beat Bayern in last season's show with Celtic. That's not being out of the game. It's close to overreacting. I appreciate it's a wild call. Look, when I say out of the game, no disrespects to the Scottish League. You might as well be out of the league, right? Like I don't look. Managing Celtic in the Scottish League, I mean, I'm sorry, but you know, it is. You might as well take yourself out of the game. I don't think you can come to the Premier League. You look at Big Ange. You know, yeah, you can argue that Big Ange won a cup, but Big Ange wasn't great. Absolutely not for me. It's the ownership. I agree, correct, which is why I've said the manager couldn't help. I agree. Managing Aberdeen in the Scottish League, I'll stop now. Look, but again, that's not a comeback. That was in the late 70s, 80s, and that is not the same. That is not the same. That is not the same. That is not the same, my friend. You know, you can't argue something that happened 40, 45 years ago that applies now. So Brendan Rodgers is not going to win us the league. It's not going to make us a better team. Rodgers was a Liverpool manager donkeys years ago, almost won the league with them. No, that's not for me. He's not for me. But again, guys, look, I respect the opinions. Again, I'll always give you my opinion. I respect your opinion. Look, if Rodgers came in and he did a cracking job, I would hold my hands up. You guys come back at me and tell me that I was wrong. No problem with being wrong. Absolutely no issue at all. If Amorin goes, who do we pick it? Mate, I have no idea. Steve Rick says hi. Chip plays hello, my friend. Yeah, we'll get relegated. So the only other thing I wanted to really talk about was Glasner. Apparently, Glasner, this is his dream job. Apparently, I think Glasner needs to be careful what he wishes for. Let me know. Champers. Relegation might be actually a benefit in the long term. Now, Oliver, where I would agree with you on that is if it forced the Glazers to go, I would take it all. I would take it all day long, 100%. But it's not. Nothing is gonna take these parasites out. Nothing at all. By the way, I don't even like the man. I just see him as a realistic replacement with Premier League experience, big club experience. It's Ancelotti for me. Look, I take him. Brazil, we're going to get him in a World Cup year. I don't think we will. But I agree with you, B-Doc. I agree with you. I would go and get him as well. I think he is the guy that will come in and do stuff. I would go for him as well. Agreed. Just not Southgate. I agree. It may force them out, which is why I said it. Look, Oliver, it's not going to force them out, mate. It just won't. It's not going to force them out. Relegation will hurt the fans more than us. Will hurt the fans more than them. It will not touch them. They'll still get matchday revenue, which will probably still be touching like £500 million. They'll still get brand deals. They'll get rid of this playing squad. They'll get rid of all those wages. They'll probably make more money, and they're never going to go. They're never going to go. The moment that they get permission to build the stadium, they're not going anywhere whatsoever. And Oliver, you're right, mate. We might go down anyway.
You want them gone. We need no one to game by on the tops. I agree. We need people. We need people there to march. 100%. Get rid of the current owners may not fix the problem, as the next owners could be a lot worse. Frugal boy, look, mate. Agree. Look, do I agree with that statement? No. As an opinion, that's a valid opinion, a really, really valid one. Nah, they won't be worse, mate. Where's Elon Musk when you need him? But it's a good opinion, though. You know, who's to say the next owners are going to, they could be worse. I doubt it. But frugal boy, that's a good point. It is a really good point. Why would any manager want the poison chalice? Jim, it's true, mate. But sadly, people do. People do. People really, really do. We'll finish higher than the last season. Maybe we will. But guys, yeah, fantastic show. Really, really good opinions today, guys. Not saying that people's opinions are not good, but some really, really interesting opinions on here today. I like it. I like the fact that we don't agree. I think it's a very, very good way to be. I think as a community, 100%, we don't need to agree. United money won't save them. You just have to accept it was and now isn't. RJA, bollocks, mate. Sorry. There's some opinions I'll just come out, bollocks. If we got a bunch of money, I'm not saying that we are going to come in and win the league again year after year, but we will get back up there. Money is the key, and if you don't think that, then you're in the wrong game. Money will save this club. It is the only thing that will save this club. Mary says, "Hi, handsome. How are you, dear? Big kiss from Zurich. Thank you." So fans wouldn't have Klopp, but would have Brendan. I wouldn't have him. Remove of ownership is the only way. JB, I can see them. I can see. I don't know what. I don't know, mate. I don't know. No idea, my pal. On your PC screen. Oh, I see. No, it really isn't. I know. I'm confused as well. Anyway, guys, I do have to get back to work. I am going to go. As I say, thank you, guys. This show, again, absolutely fantastic. You guys, players are crap. Exactly that, guys. But thank you for being here. As I'll always say, you guys make the show, whether we agree or not. Whatever opinions that you have is really, really important. I think that I read them out on here. As I say, it is not my opinion, and that's it. It's everybody's opinion together, and I think that's the only way that we get a balanced view. So on that note, guys, if anything does break, if he does sack, Andrew says people blame Stevie for the slip against Chelsea. Brendan's ego has not been inflated. He had to be at Jose. Liverpool could have drawn the game and beat Palace, and the whole fiasco was Brendan's ego. Exactly that. Is Amorin out, Lucas? Not just yet. So, guys, thank you for being here. Have a good rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. I should be back tonight. I'll let you know if not. Have a good rest of your day. Thank you for being here so much, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.